Hello, Brad here, just to say we're super proud that the Friday 5pm podcast is sponsored by the Malt Miller, the UK's best home brew store.
We use the Malt Miller for all of our homebrew experiments, as well as tapping them up for advice and binging on their awesome YouTube channel all the time.
That's why whenever we release a homebrew video, we put a recipe kit live on the Malt Miller, so you can brew with the exact same amazing ingredients that we did. The same ingredients used by pro brewers.
So alongside the Malt Miller's nitro-flushed hops, cold-stored yeast and milled-to-order malts, you can pick up recipe kits for our 5 Points Best Bitter, Russian River West Coast IPA, and now the fastest beer in the world, a hazy session IPA that goes from grain to glass in less than 48 hours.
Sign up to their newsletter at tinyurl.com/Malt Miller to get 5% off your first order. With the Malt Miller's amazing customer service and Jonny's 48-hour recipe, you could order the ingredients on a Monday and be drinking the beer by the weekend.
Speaking of which, it's Friday.
It's 5pm.
So enjoy this week's Friday 5pm podcast. It's Friday, it's 5pm, and I'm sure you're going to be mildly perturbed by the fact that we are unfortunately without Brad this week. But I have found not one, but two incredible replacements, who are in fact the sponsors of this podcast, the wonderful Malt Miller, and in particular, Jim and Rakey. Welcome to the Friday 5pm.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you for asking.
Feel like we've got big boots to fill, right? Brad's not here, so we'll see what we can do to derail the conversation.
Big sandals, generally, if I'm honest. He rocked up to Pressure Drop yesterday in his sandals again, and I pointed out, I was like, you've got to start turning up in suitable shoes. Then he just pointed at the person next to him from Pressure Drop who was also in sandals. So I was the one that got it wrong yesterday.
Has he not got like steel toe cap sandals yet?
Oh my God, that's his Christmas present right there.
It's like there's one of the guys in the warehouse who's like, he's a bit like Brad. He's obsessed with wearing sandals and like thongs, and like constantly jokes about he wants to get some steel toe cap sandals so that he can wear sandals to work. Maybe steel toe capped Crocs. They probably exist. They do. Yeah.
They do. Oh right, okay, confirmed. Yeah. Purchased already.
I kind of imagine like you get like these little steel things that you put your toes into, like little toe metal things that like you can then wear your sandals. I don't know.
I think if Malt Miller did Malt Miller branded steel toe capped Crocs, I'd buy those.
Yeah, you could adorn them with all kinds of different bits of embellishment type of thing. Like,
go on, add it to the product list, Martin. You can source those.
Steel toe cap Crocs.
How long is the Malt Miller product list? I assume it's like me with video ideas.
About 4,500 SKUs. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the ones we've got published. The ones that we're sourcing, that's a pretty long list as well. Yeah. Although, shameless plug, Martin did manage to source high-quality trugs, which we are now selling, of many different sizes, perfect for all your brewing needs.
The trugs, the top of the trugs.
Sorry, what are trugs?
Buckets. Plastic, flexible buckets.
Plastic B&Q type builders, gardening, trug things that you just throw rubbish into, or grain baskets or whatever.
I've exposed how little DIY I do by saying I don't know the technical term for a bucket. There you go. Well, so you heard it here first. Steel toe capped Crocs are coming to to maybe the Craft Beer Channel merch store as well. Maybe we're all going to go for it. Having been shamed for my use of purely socks while brewing, I'm going to have to start considering my footwear.
Oh, you haven't got any safety slippers?
I haven't got safety anything, if I'm entirely honest.
I did end up with wet feet myself this week. You know, I know we're going to go into what we've been up to this week, but I did climb into the mash tun track to clean it out and ended up getting my Vans absolutely soaked. So that was my fault.
They didn't provide you with safety Crocs.
Yeah, you'd have been fine if you got the safety Crocs on.
Yeah.
Straight after this podcast, I'm emailing Matt and telling him they need to get complimentary safety Crocs for all visitors.
Yeah. It's going to be part of. Oh my God! What's the health and safety thing all breweries do? Oh, I can't remember the name of the salsa. Salsa. Could be part of that. You never know. Right. Well, our plan here was to dive straight into an advert for the festival And in classic Friday 5 p.m. style, we've spent 5 minutes talking about safety crocs. So, yeah, let's talk about this festival, which is happening in 2 days less than a month.
Yeah, I know, right? We're absolutely like bubbling with excitement over at our side at the Malt Miller. September 14th, Hackney Brewery. It's going to be amazing. And actually, I think one thing for us is that, you know, having been to last year's event in a fairly small way, you know, we took a kegerator, 3 kegs of beer, a few little bits and pieces. We were blown away by how many people were home brewers there, were interested in it. So to be working with you and Brad this year in a more collaborative way to expand on the homebrew element of the festival, like that's absolutely awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the homebrew element was a sampling. And this time, we're very much forcing it down people's throats. But in the best way, because obviously you don't have to be a homebrewer to be fascinated by the ingredients that go into beer. And in fact, I came up with this idea, which I'm going to pitch to you now. So while I was at Two Flints this week, we were talking about, you know, how important it is for people to understand differences in New England IPA by actually understanding what the hops do and what the hops bring. And we thought that there should, on some website, be a sample pack for non-homebrewers. So like a box you could buy where you could get like a little range of malts, a little range of hops that you could just, you know, sniff and learn about next to beers. I think that'd be sort of a little sensory kit. Maybe we could put it on the Craft Beer Channel merchandise page on your website and be like, this is, you know, the Craft Beer Channel sensory kit for you to learn about the ingredients of beer. Come with the beer as well, probably.
It's not a crazy idea at all. You know, we do similar things for samples for other people, like off-site, you know, for some of our suppliers. So, yeah, that's something we could definitely look to
And
do.
I have seen them as well from, like, some of the maltsters do them. Like, you can get, like, vitamin kits and other maltsters kind of do it as well. So, yeah, it's not a bad shout.
Yeah. But, yeah, I guess generally those are pushed towards homebrewers where, you know, I think there's a lot of beer drinkers out there that have never rubbed a hop. And, you know, when you get like a really beautiful oily pellet, it's just such an all-encompassing kind of experience to just stick your face in it. It's unlike any other flower.
You could almost kind of like back that up with a video with you like there talking people through what you've presented them as your selection box.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking like an insert, but we could do an insert with the QR code to a video where we could go through it. Oh, this idea is blossoming.
Yeah, and like as a selection box, you could dress as like the Cadbury's Malt Tray Man. And it's like then talk them through the delights in front of them type of thing.
Just no strawberry cream, right? No strawberry cream, because that's minging.
I'm not sure there is a hop for strawberry cream yet. I mean, maybe, you know, SARS can get there when it's fresh from the tank, but that's probably about it. The world isn't screaming out for strawberry cream. It's actually an off flavour I pick up in a lot of beers. I think beers that have had hop creep in the can. You get this kind of weird, horrible floral sweetness, which is I guess it's sort of diacetyl mixed with juicy yeast.
Yeah, and like over attenuation, so you get almost slight tartness, acidity to it as well.
Yeah, so strawberry cream does exist in beer. It just probably shouldn't. So yeah, again, got away from the festival. So Love a Beer, 14th of September, Hackney Brewery. Weirdly, that's in Walthamstow now. It's going to be an absolutely magical event. It's going to be everything that we had last year. So great food, great music, Budvar pouring free, 10 collabs, 4 Craft Beer Channel collabs, 1 Malt Miller collab, which we'll dig into in a bit, and then 5 other collabs between breweries that we've combined sort of those that are very much loved already, those that are underrated, and those that are essentially unknown. And they have come up with an absolutely banging list. We've got Smoked Dunkels, American Browns, NZ Pills, Vermont-style IPAs, hazy IPAs, West Coast IPAs, mixed firm sours. So much stuff going on. It's going to be a really, you know, the kind of list you want to see when you walk into a pub or a beer festival. And lots of sessiony, crispy stuff as well. And on top of that, Brad is adding Morris dancers.
Village fair vibes.
Yeah. You were talking about a tombola. We'll see if that happens. But yeah, more importantly, so Malt Miller you guys are bringing the homebrew vibe. So we're going to have a whole marquee filled with the best homebrew clubs in the UK, pouring free samples into Brad's specially designed sample glass. And folk are going to vote on their favourite bar of the festival. Is that where we've landed?
Yeah. So we've got some prizes that we're putting up for the homebrew clubs, where the attendees will have the opportunity to vote for their favourite bar, and that could be a combination of the beers that are being served there, the information they're learning from the people that are serving the beers or the club members that are there, or just down to the way the club has kind of dressed their bar. And we know some of them are going to be going to town on this, having been to some of the club nights at other homebrew events. The attendees will then get the opportunity to vote for their favourite bar, and then the homebrew clubs will win some awesome prizes. So it's a really nice way of bringing in the homebrew community and getting their support for this, because we firmly believe that homebrewers currently in the UK have never been better, and the information and the standards that are out there that they're working towards are just second to none. You've judged some homebrew competitions, Jonny. We've judged homebrew competitions, and when you get to like those final couple of rounds now, it can be really difficult to pick winners, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the quality is higher than some of the professional ones. Certainly the more niche categories, which I think homebrewers excel at. When you're judging the commercial ones and you're into the fruit-flavoured beers and stuff, it's often a shit show. But in homebrew, when you get to those final ones, it's pretty incredible what people are achieving at home.
Yeah.
Like it is the community that's coming, which I think is the other bonus. Last year it was like really, really cool that like everybody embraced us pouring our homebrew. They had to put up with what we brought along. This time it's like all the leading clubs in the country type of thing are going to be there. You got Lab, you got Beer Bros, who are always kind of joyfully kind of competing against each other. And then you got guys like the Oyster Boys coming along. You got Dudes Brews, Richard Williams.
Yeah, well, they're Bedford homebrewers. He looks after Bedford homebrewers, so they're coming. We've got some of the team from Bristol. Reading amateur brewers. These people are absolutely fantastic at both organising their clubs and brewing fantastic beer. But not only is it like homebrew clubs that are coming, but we've worked with getting some of the suppliers of ingredients that we use, and obviously we use the same ingredient suppliers that almost all of the breweries around the country are using. They're going to be coming along to kind of showcase the ingredients that go into producing both the homebrew but also the commercial beers that the people that are attending the event will be trying. So if you've never had the opportunity to get hands-on with kind of some of the malts that are used, and really excitingly some of the hops that are used, but also yeast as well, you're going to be able to meet and talk to the team from some of these awesome suppliers, such as we've got Simpson's Malt, we've got Crisp, we've got the team from WHC are coming along to talk about the exciting yeast that they're producing at the moment.
John Stringer from Charles Farrams.
Yeah, and also like Bath Haas are going to be there showcasing some of the amazing hop products that they use, that we supply. So that's going to be really exciting, and I hope that a lot of people that have never been able to get hands-on with the ingredients that go into the beers can feel that little bit more connected to what they're drinking after spending time with these people. And then also, we're gonna bring some equipment along for people to take a look at and learn about, how they could either get into the hobby of homebrewing or to kind of go a little bit further if they're already homebrewing. And then actually the marquee, the tent where we're setting up the homebrew bar, is being sponsored by our friends over at Grainfather, and they're going to have a really cool stand in that tent with loads of equipment on display, like information about how to make some of the wine kits, how to make beer kits, how to kind of use Grainfathers, some of their fermentation systems, all that sort of stuff. So
and they're bringing beer along as well.
Yeah. So
right, cool.
Yeah, it's going to be a real celebration of, like I said, homebrewing, the ingredients that go into both homebrew and commercial beer, and then obviously everything that you talked about, Jonny, that was at the core of the event last year.
Yeah, it's gonna be magic. I can also do an exclusive reveal of one of the food traders.
Ooh.
So we have managed to obtain the wonderful services of Stoked, so vegan barbecue food. As an amazing restaurant out in Essex, and on top of that, they are going to be bringing, for our bottle share element, which we did last year, where sort of every other hour we'd open something incredibly rare and exciting. There's going to be Heady Topper on site, folks.
What?
So so Stoked they're launching a website called Bucket List Beers, which brings in the best beers that they can from around the world, particularly the US. And they're going to bring some bang fresh Heady for us to pour out for the good folks of the festival.
Awesome.
So the hype just keeps growing.
That's amazing. That is amazing, because that is one of those beers that if you've not been over there, you're lucky if you've been able to try it, because it doesn't get over here very often. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. So yeah, you can get tickets, link in the description to this podcast or all over our socials. You'll also find that tomorrow Craft Beer Channel are uploading something to promote it, and on Sunday, Malt are releasing something to promote it. So we're grinding the gears. We're kicking off with the promo as we come into the final month. Anyway, enough promo, enough croc talk. Craft Beer Channel had a busy week related to the festival, but also related to content that we're producing. So we've all been at it. We'll dig into your trip to Manchester in a bit. But so this week I was up at Tuesday I was at Pastore, brewing a pink lemonade inspired raspberry and lemon mixed firm sour. Tuesday I was at Two Flints brewing an NZ. New England-ish IPA. It's actually landed somewhere in Vermont, really. And then at Pressure Drop yesterday, brewing an IPA version of Pale Fire, which I have to say was, a really, really great fun day, but also one of those sort of pinch me moments where, Pale Fire was one of my favourite beers when I first got into craft. And to be, bafflingly brewing the first sort of double version of Pale Fire, because they've never thought of extending that brand for some reason. It was a really, really special moment, and the video is going to be great as well. We've got Sam, their head brewer, was just, sometimes you turn up to a brewery and the brewer is sort of, just getting on with it, like perfectly nice. We're getting on with the day, like trying to hit all their numbers, focusing on everything, and you'll come up to them and go like, "Oh, when's the Whirlpool editions?" They'll be like, "Oh, I did it 10 minutes ago. Did you want to film it?" Sam couldn't have been more on top of what we needed on the day. So we've got some great footage. We've got Brad nailing a hop edition so much that he got given a sticker, and the childish joy in his face is just
Did he put the sticker onto his sandals?
His sandals are very spindly sandals. There's not even room for stickers. It went pride of place on his chest. We've filmed at all of those locations, so there's going to be some great videos coming out. And Two Flints, if you haven't had their beer, just came out of the gate absolutely firing with a beautiful Keller beer and some great IPAs, and they've got even better. And now they're trying. Well, I don't know if you guys know about this yeast. I think it's A37. It's what Fiden's brewery are using in the US. It's sort of low ester production but high glycerin. Drops the pH a little bit. Okay. Is saying interestingly they've learned, and so you get this really rich full beer, but without all the ester production, and it feels a little bit crisper. And then obviously you then dial up the hop juice to get that kind of New England feel. Stable haze as well with the yeast, and when you're adding enough proteins, it's really not a yeast that I've ever heard about, and I haven't tried Fiden's yet. But it sounded interesting.
No, it's not one that we've used. So
is that the Imperial one? I think it might be from Imperial.
Possibly, I forget. It was an American company. They had to ship it over, and they're having to try and make it last 12 generations, so it will make any financial sense for them.
I think it's Imperial, because they reference theirs with like a letter and then a number, and I think A37 might be POG. It's like a seasonal release that they do, if it's the same one. Which I think is just literally coming to the end of its release. They release it like once or twice a year.
Okay. So I'll email Alex at Two Flints and get definite confirmation and send that to you guys and anybody that's interested in our Patreon homebrew forum. But yeah, it was not a yeast or an approach that I'd really heard before. So it'd be interesting to taste that beer at the festival.
That's a bit of a crazy week though, going to 3 breweries, 3 videos. I mean, doing one a week is hard enough as kind of like...
Yeah, I was absolutely done in after 36 hours in Manchester.
Yeah, well, I mean, Two Flints was a trek all the way to Windsor, but Pastore are relatively near to me. You have to pretty much drive directly past crossover. So apparently North Hertfordshire and Cambridgeshire are becoming the mixed firm heartland of the UK. Yeah, I mean, it's not as bad as last year we did 10 collabs last year and we visited 8 of them. 2 of them we didn't make it to within 2.5 weeks of each other. So this one was relatively chilled.
Amazing.
But also, I'm not brewing, so I'm not too knackered.
Amazing to go to Pastore, though. Martin and I went there a couple of years ago to judge a mixed firm homebrew competition, and then they were knocking things out of the park with the beers they were producing. But you and Martin were at London Craft Beer Festival last week, sampling some of their beers, and I think you were blown away, weren't you?
It's already been a while since I'd had Pastore, and I'm not a huge kettle sour fan, but they are one of the producers who actually do that type of beer exceptionally well. And their wild bug fermentation and kind of their Solera beers, which they have, those are always absolutely stunning. Last weekend, that was the memory that kind of stood in my mind, was tasting those beers on their stand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I often find, every brewery that I go to, if they're making really magical, unique stuff, it's usually because of something they do that is almost entirely unique. And we talked about this in the video with Pastore. Like, a lot of breweries make very tasty kettle sours, but it's an afterthought. It's in addition to the range. It's a seasonal release. Whereas because they focus entirely on it, they have been tweaking and tweaking and tweaking and tweaking. And obviously, they ferment a sour, so they toss in lactobacillus and quike yeast, which like the same temperatures, into the fermenter together rather than sort of kettle sour. And it definitely does seem to result in something that has, in particular, a very different texture, like a really kind of creamy, yogurty texture and aroma that just creates more complexity, which then makes the acidity a little bit less kind of assertive and the dominant element of it.
I think they're just really expert in understanding the yeast and the bugs that they use and exactly what they can and don't, and how to get the best out of them. They work really closely with Bootleg Biology. Jeff, he supplied the original kind of strains that went into their Solera, and they get regular supplies from him. So they're getting proper yeast wranglers in the industry.
Yeah, and again, that's the mark of a great brewery to me. At Two Flints, I kind of expected to turn up, and I looked at the brew sheet and didn't have that many tweaks. So I was like, well, it looks like a normal New England. But then you start talking to Alex, and you talk about the actual process, which I think is always, if anything, more important than the recipe itself. And you go, oh, well, you guys do it very, very differently, not just to other brews, but every single beer. They're looking at the hops or what the flavors they want to achieve, and entirely, ripping up their process and changing it to try and achieve it.
Yeah.
And I think
that for us is something we always find as well. And when we're trying to interpret, a commercial brewery's recipe down to a homebrew scale for like our Brew With Us series, or any partners we're working with, writing a recipe is one thing, to your point, Jonny. Having a recipe sheet with the ingredients and timings and that kind of thing on is one thing, but learning how the processes work in the brewery and trying to then interpret that down to like a grainfather, that's always the tough bit. But luckily, this guy here is a bit of a mastermind at figuring those things out, and that's led to some amazing homages and clones that we've produced of commercial beers.
I love that when you find these little nuggets and you think, well, how do I make that happen at home? Or it's like, how do I uncomplicate the complicated? How do I take this house yeast strain and not have to deal with like the 2 different strains which are competing against each other?
Yeah.
And just like make a homebrew version. Stuff like that.
I think I know which one you're talking about there.
Yeah.
I recently, I'm just trying to dig it out on my phone. Chris Loring, the owner of Notch, recently did a super nerdy post about decoction.
Yeah.
And something that he was sort of playing with, which basically he's saying you can get double decoction character basically within about an hour of actual mashing. And I'll try and put a link in the pod description, because anybody who is decocting at home, it's quite a revelatory, quite simple little process that he's got. That, if you've got, say, a little malt miller mash tun and a grain father, could mean that you could get a lot more character out of a single decoction. And yeah, I read that, and loads of commercial brewers are like, well, this is a game changer. And I just messaged being like, every home brewer who makes lager needs to read this, and it's stuff like that. Because, otherwise a Czech Pilsner is, somebody asked me for my Czech Pilsner recipe, it would be, 100% Vireman floor malted barley and about 100 grams of SARS. You don't learn a lot from that particular recipe.
No,
it's everything else that...
Yeah, being able to understand like how you end up at the end result. One of the more challenging ones for us was when we worked with St Austell to do the tribute recipe. That beer, you read the recipe sheet and there's loads of clones out there, people that have like taken photographs of the original daylight robbery recipe sheet and then tried to interpret it. There's tons out there. But when you actually spend time with Georgina and go around the brewery and understand like actually how they get the hop character from the Willamette into the beer without doing any dry hopping, and they've got this big hop aroma vessel that they're literally circulating the wort through after the whirlpool. So they do the boil, a whirlpool, and then the infusion through the hop aroma vessel. And Martin came up with a way of like basically using the grain basket on a G40 or a G30, loading it with all of the...
Yes, Martin.
Yeah, loading it up with hops into the wort cool. At the end, and then just running the recirc through it for like 35 minutes or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest learnings that helped on that was spending time with Jamil at Elusive when he was doing the collab Janet's Brown with them there, and he said to me, the one question you always ask when you go to a brewery, how long does it take to transfer? How long does it take to transfer? Because that time is going to be exponentially longer than a home brewer. A home brewer, you can do it 15-20 minutes. But a brewery, it could be like anything from an hour to 2 hours. So there's a lot more contact time you have to take into consideration, and that cool down time. So all of those timings are the questions you need to ask all the time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We learn.
So, go on.
No, go on. After you.
Well, I was going to try and make the link. I was going to go, so how long's the transfer time at Track?
Well, this is a really interesting one. Yep. So we've been up at Track this week, brewing our collab beer for the festival, of which we've got a video coming out this Sunday. So I won't give too much away, but I will do a shameless plug. If you're not already subscribed to the Malt Millers YouTube channel, head over, hit that subscribe button. We were up there brewing the beer, but we're going to be releasing a homebrew kit version of the beer as well. And when the beer is released, we'll have some cans that you can buy side by side. Normally when we go and do these collabs and film them, it's for like a core beer, but because of the festival, we wanted to do something extra special. And Joe here knows Matt from Track really well. They spent some time in Yakima together on Hop Harvest, and she reached out to Matt and said, look, do you want to do this collab with us? They were really up for it. And we've developed a recipe for a hazy pale ale in Track style, which is, loads of hop saturation, lots of body, bigger than the sum of its parts, a pale ale that's got the body of an IPA or some dippers in many cases. And we dived into like how they do that. And it's really interesting. We talked about process a minute ago. Some of the processes they use, kind of Joe and I were looking at each other like, oh, how are we going to do this, right? They mash in a particular way to really try and reduce oxygen contact during the mash, because they don't want the colour change in the mash. They want a pale ale to be as pale as possible, real sort of popping, bright yellow in the glass. So they focus on low oxygen mashing, short mash times as well. And then a bit of recirculation before it then gets transferred over to the kettle. The amount of hops that went into the kettle at the beginning of the boil, it was almost like, well, we need to do this because it's just sort of like denotes the start of the boil. I think when I scaled it down to a 23-litre batch, it's like 1.5 grams goes in at the beginning of the boil. And then, usual boil, but they really manage their pH well. They focus on pH in the mash, but also in the boil just before you come up to the boil. And again, that helps to kind of limit the Maillard reactions that are happening in the kettle and preserve that colour. And then the transfer afterwards. Now this blew us away. I don't want to give too much away, right? I want to leave some stuff on the table for people to go and like watch the video and find out. But they don't whirlpool, right? So they don't do any whirlpool. They transfer into the fermenter straight from the boil, and they do hot dipping, right? Which is a fairly new process to us. We've never done it at homebrew level. So again, it's going to be really interesting to see how we do that. And check out the video to see what hops we're using and how we're approaching it. But in essence, you transfer a small amount of hot wort straight out of the kettle into the fermenter. You add some hops, like your whirlpool edition.
Yeah, I don't think you should say anymore. I think you should just leave it there. That's it.
And then that's it. Yeah, you just leave that.
There's another secret process, and Matt told me about this process a while ago, and it's like, why are you doing that? That's wrong.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's stuck with it for like a few years now, and he swears by it.
But anyway, you kind of get the picture. So check out the video on Sunday. It's very, very interesting, and for me, I can't wait to see how the beer finishes up and how we interpret it.
I can't wait to watch the video myself because I wasn't lucky enough to get up there. And there was another thing which you told me about, and I said, why? Why are they doing that? So yeah, I'm going to learn a lot on Sunday from this video.
It's well, I've watched it, I've learned, and had some conversations with two Flints along the same processes. So it's clearly starting to spread. I think it was North Park on the West Coast that maybe started doing the hop dipping thing, and people have had great success with it. So and I think it is achievable on a homebrew scale, but we'll leave that till Sunday. Can you reveal a little bit more about the beer that people will drink at the festival?
Yeah, so it's a... Shall I tell people the name, or should we leave that till Sunday?
Oh, no, all right, yeah, leave the reveal. Let's drive people to the Malt Miller channel, which is a fantastic channel. Whether you love homebrew or not, there's so much knowledge to be gained and fun to be had.
I think it's, hop-wise, it's nice to just maybe let people know what hops are in there, and it's relatively... it's kind of what you'd expect from Track. They like to use kind of classic American hops in combination with some New World hops, whether that's from New Zealand or Australia. So we've got Mosaic and Citra, and then Vic Secret and Galaxy. So a really beautiful combination, which should drive tons and tons of tropical fruit, a little bit of dankness in there from the Galaxy and the Mosaic. So yeah, really looking forward to seeing how it turns out.
Amazing. Right, cool. Well, so the next thing we need to do is go through, because we didn't have a podcast last week, and apologies for that. As you can tell, we're all over the country at the moment, so things are a little bit chaotic. But we did have a video last week, even if we didn't have a podcast, and we didn't get to dig into that. And that video was about Pastore. It's a video we've been wanting to make for a while, and then the timing just made a lot of sense, given that we were going to Pastore the week after. So we, Brad and I in the studio... I was about to say sat down. No, there's no room in the studio to sit down. We stood up and we drank 3 beers from Pastore, one of which was sort of that quick sour. So I think it's about a month to make their quick sours. So not as quick as some quick souring breweries. And then we had a dry hopped, berried Flemish red that was actually lacking a bit of acidity, but was very good. And then, of course, we had Amelie, which is... quickly leapt up to my top beers of the year. Rakey, did you taste that beer at LCBF?
I can't remember which one it was that we got to taste, because I've got to be honest, it was late in the day and there'd been a lot of things tasted. But I do remember what we tasted was delicious. But I was really intrigued by what you tasted on the video. The one that's saying, like, the first one, which was the Negroni style beer, I think you described it as, and definitely the last one, which had the grapes in the hybrid, which isn't a hybrid.
Yeah. we did get a comment from somebody that said, obviously, sometimes winemakers do ferment on the grapes, so there is there is a hybrid element to it, I guess, if that's the case, which I think happens with red and obviously orange wine. So potentially it's slightly hybridy, but I don't think it's a very helpful term for anybody. Really, the hybridity is putting it in a 750 and it looking bright red. That's
Yeah, the colour of it looked glorious. It kind of reminded me of a beer I saw Beak do, which was like a rhubarb beer, and that kind of like that was in a clear bottle and just had this beautiful, glorious summer vibe about it. Like, yeah, I want to sit in the garden drinking that in the heat.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'd say it's a great way of changing people's minds about beer, because, it just opens people's minds to what beer can be. Beer is fermented grain, right?
Yeah.
That's really the sort of the thing that every beer has in common, and that it is unique to it. There's anything you can do with it. And I think more than any brewery I really know, Pastore proved that day in, day out, that beer can be a canvas.
Do you know if they've still got stuff on their web shop? Because I've been meaning to get on there all week, and I'm just wondering whether you've kind of sold it all out for them.
I believe they're now out of Amelie, but I think the other ones are around.
I'm going to have to hunt around.
I bought that from the beer shop, my local,
Right.
so they might still have it on their web shop. I bought it in person, but it might be on the web shop. But yeah, if you see it, it's a buy on site beer, Amelie by Pastore. It's just absolutely stunning. And I had some great beers while I was there as well. Yeah, we did talk about it in the video, which is coming out. But there's a prickly pear, sort of wine hybridy style, which they did with Superstition Meadery. Mm-hmm. That was very, very cool, and had an amazing sort of lemon, literally just a lemon mixed firm sour that smelled like Sprite. It was just like the most lemony, limey beer I think I've ever smelled, and purely zest and purely juice.
So is that hybrid one kind of like part of a series and a theme that they're following? So that if you can't get the one which used in the video, there's going to be other versions and variations of it we can get hold of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they do a full range in sort of that clear glass bottle, beautiful colours, big bold fruit aroma, and using their spontaneous culture that they inoculated from their garden, which essentially is like a sourdough culture they cared for and used, and was one of the reasons they started the brewery. Because they was like, well, this culture is very special, and we should do something a little bit bigger with it. So yeah, really sort of connected to the origins of the brewery, even though these beers are sort of have gone through a lot of generations to get to this style of brewing. Speaking of which, the sort of the natural element of these beers. So we've had lots and lots of comments, lots and lots of people very excited about these innovations, these flavors, these styles. But also, I think as always seems to happen when we talk about fruit in beer, some naysayers. And I thought it'd be nice to put to you guys some of these comments, because a major reason we're still doing the craft beer channel is the joy that we find in discovering new things that we haven't tasted before. But some people read it as the exact opposite. So Mark Goff 1372 said, "Guys, what the fuck is happening to beer? It's getting weird. Seems like you guys are running out of things to talk about. Support good British beer," it was a British brewery, "and the rest of the world to follow. Sorry for the rant, but opinions matter." And then Drunken Delilah Brewery said, "I once read a quote from a barista. If your coffee's more than 200 calories and tastes of different syrups, it isn't coffee you really want. I feel the same for beer. If your beer is funky, sour, fruit heavy and smells of goat, it isn't beer you're after. As ever, I appreciate the videos and all the information, but I'll stick to Czech Pils, German lagers, English cask ale, and maybe the odd West Coast pale."
So they're telling us to stick to traditional beer, but wasn't it traditionally sour? If you're going to go
Certainly
back to
Brexit,
medieval
probably
times.
sour.
Yeah, I mean,
Not even then. Probably the 1900s. Significant portions of beer would have been bretted and possibly sour and fruited.
well, I think, saisons are a really good example of that. Saison Dupont, which is the classic saison that people would maybe judge all other saisons by. Actually, it's the modern style. It's not been around as long as the saison style, which harks
it's the 50s.
Which harks all the way back to farmhands earning beer and being given beer as part of their wage. And those beers would have been using weird and wonderful yeast strains that people didn't understand, and would have undoubtedly been weird and funky. And I don't know. I think many people for us, we're really fortunate to work in homebrew because we see really the entirety of people's tastes in beer, because homebrewers, they will try new things, they'll try old things, they'll
Try weird things.
Yeah, look for historic recipes, and we probably sell a huge amount of our recipe kits are kind of traditional beer styles, but more and more and more we're seeing, hazy pale ales now at like number 1 and number 2 spot in our best-selling recipe kits. Then maybe like decocted Czech lagers. We've got loads of sour recipe kits or mixed fermentation recipe kits now that people are buying. I think the stuff for me around like beer taste is, well, it's a bit like wine. There's so much variety. There's something for everyone, and because of that, I feel like beer's a really inclusive environment because you have something for everybody. You go to a beer festival, right? And maybe you're going there with people that aren't huge beer lovers, but maybe they like ciders and wine. You'll be able to find beers that they'll like because it will be similar. It will touch on that same part of their palate that enjoys wine or cider. And for me, I think that's wonderful. And it's testimony to the experimental nature of homebrewers, professional brewers, and kind of the way things are challenged and pushed forward. But also how so much of it is steeped in the history of brewing, and bringing back beer styles that maybe haven't been as popular for particularly long.
Yeah, like one of the main takeaways, certainly sort of beer-specific takeaways from my new book, The Meaning of Beer, has been the context that I've gained, because so we now think that beer, the earliest record we have of beer is 13,000 years ago in a cave near Nazareth.
Double dry hopped,
so beer has double dry hopped, DDH IPA, and that was it was barley and wheat that was smashed up in a divot in the ground, and then clearly warm water was added, and it was left for a couple of days, and then drunk. But so we've got 13,000 years of history, of which, say, Czech Pilsner and everything that came from it, which is most beers, because that was what inspired Hans. I was going to say Hans Christian Andersen. No, not him. Emil Christian Hansen to isolate the Carlsberg yeast strain. It's what inspired Louis Pasteur and Theodore Schwann, who doesn't get the love he deserves for recognizing what yeast does and why beers might go sour, which then led to all kinds of things I write about in the book, like Joseph Lister discovering we're infecting people by sticking our dirty hands in them during operations. Like that's what's that? That's just shy of 200 years ago. So the beers that people are saying is what beer tastes like, what is good beer or not weird beer, or beer-flavoured beer, is 200 years of 13,000 years of history. So for 12,800 years, if there was a YouTube channel, we would have been talking exclusively about Pastore-style beer, and every time we mentioned this weird shit going on in the Czech Republic, people would be like, no, stick to beer-flavoured beer. We don't want this Czech Pilsner nonsense. And I'd like to think probably there were people back then that were like, we don't want to drink this weird, pale, very, very hoppy beer. We want to drink stuff with Brettanomyces and dark roastiness. It's a great quote I found. Oh, sorry, go on, Ricky.
They'd have been probably throwing more fruit in there than anyone. Because it's like, what can we ferment? What can we get sugar from? What can we... they'll have been throwing everything from the garden in there, vegetables or whatever.
Yeah, you look at like really truly historic recipes, there's endless amounts of honey going in, fruits going in, any way that they can dial up that sugar for the stronger brews is definitely going in.
So maybe I wasn't the first person to do a green tomato breaded sour.
No, probably not.
Yeah, probably garden. Yeah.
You might still be the first there.
Not all beers are weird. That one was.
Right, okay. But that would get these commenters out in force, I'd imagine. Green tomato beer. Did you enjoy it, Rakey? Or
yeah, I loved it. It was great.
Oh, okay. Right.
I think I've still got a couple of bottles kicking about.
Well, don't feel you have to bring them to the festival.
I was thinking of making one with courgettes, because we've got a glut of courgettes at the moment.
Yeah. Why not?
Grate some courgettes and kind of throw them in the fermenter or kind of mash them in. I don't know. I had a very weird dream about courgettes last night, actually. I'll tell you about that later.
Oh, God.
This is what Fridays
tell
are
the
like for
podcast.
us at the Malt Miller. Martin talks
Right.
about his
When I was
vegetable garden.
I was picking the courgettes in the garden, and every time I picked them, they kind of deflated like a balloon.
Oh, what, in your dream?
Yeah, in my dream.
Oh, this is the dream.
Yeah, this
Right,
is the dream.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a bit bizarre. And then I woke up thinking, I could do beer with courgettes. And that might be this weekend's plan.
You should have a chat if the folks from McColl's manage to come down, because McColl's make beet de garde, so they have a essentially beetroot saison.
I've had
Maybe you could
beetroot
see
beer.
if-
Beetroot beer is good. I've had beetroot before. That's nice.
Yeah.
But beetroot's
Maybe-
got like tons of sugar in it and a really distinctive colour.
Yeah, it's no difference putting dextrose in because that's made from beet.
Courgettes. A bit watery, aren't they? Anyway.
I'll let you know.
Yeah.
I think just make loads of like the courgette pasta with a bit of parmesan that's in Stanley Tucci's book.
Oh, I love that. Yes, I've done that a few times. Yeah.
That's got to be the way. Yeah, so I mean, just to go back to Drunken Delilah and Mark Goff, like absolutely 100% would defend your right to drink exactly what you want. But it is worth remembering that what you like is not traditional beer. What you like is modern, clean beer that was invented in the 1880s. And maybe the 50 years before that as we dialed it in. You know, the stuff that we're talking about with Pastore is obviously commercialized, steel tanks, very specific yeast strains and capabilities we wouldn't have had. But it comes from a significantly longer history of beer brewing. And probably even wine hybrids have probably been around for a long time as well. So yeah, like beer can be a canvas and it's great to project onto it whatever we want. And that is one of the great ways that we can make beer more diverse. Like you said, Jim, you know, the actual liquid itself is incredibly inclusive and it's what humans project onto it that has resulted in it being male and stale and pale and all this kind of, you know, cliches that are very much based in truth and are starting to change. As I saw at LCBF, you know, really exciting, diverse and thankfully quite young crowd as well. Because there's often talk about, you know, the kids not drinking enough. Kids eschewing beer in favour of other pleasures, and that doesn't necessarily seem to be the case. Certainly at LCBF. Right, that's about all we've got time for this week. Firstly, a massive thanks to you guys for joining me.
No, thank you.
Thanks for having us. I can't believe we've been on the podcast. I'm such an avid listener.
I know. What am I going to do tomorrow when I'm washing the car? Because normally I listen to the podcast.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to listen to this while I'm doing that as well, or mowing the lawn, because that's when I tend to do it.
Yeah.
Listening to ourselves on the pod.
I know.
It's going to be
That
kind
does
of
seem
like
a bit.
weird.
I mean, I do that every time I edit it, and yeah, it's really weird. I would suggest just crack open a tomato beer, Rakey, and dig back into. There's some people in our Patreon forum at the moment going back to the start of what was the bubble and
saw
became
that.
Friday 5 p.m.
Yeah, I saw that.
Apparently we were very nice about Brewdog at the start, which makes me cringe every time I think about it. But otherwise, hopefully it stood the test of time. And obviously there was the hour-long episodes we used to do interviewing people from in and outside of the craft beer industry that some of them are still interesting. Some of them. Brutal. All of them are still fascinating. So please do go back and check those. So all that's left to say is that we have our festival on the 14th of September. Tickets are still available. There's an afternoon and an evening session. Afternoon, very much village fete, tombola, Morris dancing. There's talk of Jonny sitting in a corner with an acoustic guitar and singing Drops of Jupiter.
That's evening.
Is that evening?
Yeah, you're doing
That's
an evening
sir.
session.
Right, okay, headliner.
We'll be able to get some of those special bottle pours into you, and then you'll definitely be strumming away on that guitar with ease.
Yeah. So you're going to bring the guitar and not even tell me, just put it in my hand once you see I'm drunk enough. And then the evening times we have DJs. We're going to have obviously great food and great beer and more bottle shares and more of a party atmosphere going on then. Do please grab tickets. There will also be a digital version. So if you can't make it to the festival, we're hoping to put together a 6-pack of beers of some of the collabs that we'll be able to send out to you guys as well. Otherwise, we will see you and you'll hear us next week for an upload. Until then, it's love and beer. The Bubble and Friday 5pm podcasts are brought to you by the nerds behind YouTube's craft beer channel. You can watch over 400 mini documentaries at youtube.com/the craft beer channel, and if you love what we do, support us via Patreon and get access to merchandise and our amazing Discord forum, a positive and welcoming space for everyone who loves beer, food and homebrewing. Love and beer.